I'm Dean Meminger with the New York 1 Minute on this Sunday night. The former legal advisor to Donald Trump's former personal attorney is expected to testify before a grand jury tomorrow. Former President Trump says he expects to be arrested Tuesday by the Manhattan DA's office over hush money payments. We're talking to experts about the potential high-profile arrest. Switzerland's biggest bank, UBS, has agreed to buy its rival Credit Suisse in an emergency rescue. It comes on the heels of the collapse of American banks. A New York 1 exclusive, former Knicks star Al Harrington joined us to talk about his journey from the NBA to becoming one of the few black CEOs in the legal cannabis industry. Tensions running high between organizers and protesters in the West Village during Drag Story Hour for children. And thousands of runners from across the globe hit the pavement for the city's half marathon. Our top stories are coming up, but first, a quick check of your forecast. A cold and dry night is in store for the city. Temperatures will bottom out close to the freezing mark. Winds will also make it feel colder at times. Now, looking ahead, we welcome in spring at 5:24 Monday evening, and temperatures will certainly be spring-like during the week with temps in the upper 50s to near 60 degrees. So tomorrow, not bad, 53, but look at this. Wednesday and Thursday, highs up around 58 degrees and plenty of sunshine. The same on Tuesday. Your next weather check coming up in 10 minutes. A former legal advisor to Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, will testify before a grand jury during a Monday hearing. Robert Costello has been asked to appear at the request of Trump's legal team. Manhattan prosecutors are investigating the former president's alleged role in paying $130,000 to adult film star Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about a relationship she had with him. Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, will also appear again at the Manhattan District Attorney's office Monday. Meanwhile, on Sunday, the former president visited Tulsa, Oklahoma. This trip comes after he announced on social media that he expects to be indicted and arrested in the coming days, and Trump urged his followers to protest if that plays out. He visited Tulsa for a college wrestling match, and supporters outside carried Trump 2024 flags. On Sunday, in an interview on ABC's This Week, Mike Pence, Trump's former vice president, called any potential arrest of Trump politically charged.
I'm taken aback at the idea of indicting a former president of the United States. At a time when there's a crime wave in New York City, that the fact that the Manhattan DA thinks that indicting President Trump is his top priority, I think, just tells you everything you need to know about the radical left in this country. It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here.
If indicted by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, he becomes the first U.S. president ever to be criminally charged after leaving office. To speak more about the issue, we're joined now by former U.S. Attorney out of Brooklyn, Zach Carter. Also, he is the former city's lawyer, former corporation counsel under former Mayor Bill de Blasio. Zach, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Your initial reaction, I mean, you've been involved in law enforcement and courts for a very long time. Your initial reaction to seeing Donald Trump, the former president, put out on social media that he's going to be arrested come next week or during the week?
Well, Trump, for his own purposes, always likes to get out ahead of adverse events, and so that's not a surprise at all. Whether his claims turn out to be accurate in terms of the timing of an indictment and arrest or surrender, well, that remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. And is there a possibility here? I mean, this is not a federal case. This is a Manhattan case under Alvin Bragg, the DA. Is there a possibility that the former president, a former president, can be indicted in New York City?
Well, sure. There's certainly no legal impediment, and there's no policy prohibition as there was at the Department of Justice while he was a sitting president of the United States. Now that he is out of office, there's nothing that bars his being prosecuted, certainly by local authorities.
And this is a case about alleged hush money, a payment made to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about a relationship she says she had with Donald Trump. And this happened around the time of the campaigning in 2016. If he is indicted, what would be the next step here? I mean, would he actually go to trial in Manhattan criminal court or a state court in Manhattan?
Well, he would be treated like any other defendant. He would be arraigned on these charges, given an opportunity to enter a plea, more likely than not, of not guilty. The judge will set out a schedule for the exchange of discovery in the case, and will set a trial date and probably a schedule for any necessary motions. That's it.
Yeah, you mentioned right at the top that former President Donald Trump likes to get out front. He is media savvy. And now it seems like Alvin Bragg, he has said that he's going to follow the evidence, and he has a lot of people testifying in front of a grand jury. But now it seems like Alvin Bragg is on the defensive, having to put out a notice to his staff and send it out to the media saying, we will be protected and don't be afraid, continue to do your job.
Well, that's a direct result of Trump having mischievously put out word that he wants his followers to protest any indictment or arrest of him on charges brought by the Manhattan District Attorney, if those charges are brought. And based on his prior MO, as demonstrated most particularly on his January 6th rally, he has no hesitancy to organize a crowd and inspire them to what he has to know based on his experience has the potential for violence. And that's the reason why Manhattan DA and others in local law enforcement are taking precautionary steps to make sure that court personnel and anyone involved in this process are safe from harm from any of the demonstrators or protesters who organize and demonstrate outside the courthouse.
Could Donald Trump face jail time in this case? I mean, Alvin Bragg has actually taken Trump and his organization to court many times, with the U.S. Attorney's Office and as the DA, winning against the Trump organization just late last year. There are a number of other cases across the country and a Justice Department investigation into Donald Trump. Could he face jail time at any point, and maybe here in New York State?
Well, there's no reason why if he's convicted, there's no reason why he shouldn't. He certainly there are jail sentences that are provided in connection with the felony charges that he would likely be facing if he's indicted. But not only are there the charges in connection with what the media has been speculating most about, and that is the hush money case, but as District Attorney Bragg has said for months, notwithstanding the representations of a certain special prosecutor who was formerly employed by that office, he never stopped prosecuting the other potential charges that were financial in nature. Just didn't believe that they were ready for prime time back in the early part of his tenure. But there's no reason to believe that investigation ever ended. So that may not be the end of the story with respect to charges coming out of the Manhattan DA's office.
All right, former U.S. Attorney Zachary Carter, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Sure.
Swiss banking giant UBS is buying out rival Credit Suisse for $3.2 billion in a bid to prevent more banking collapses. The president of Switzerland announced the deal Sunday, saying Credit Suisse's collapse could lead to incalculable consequences. Shares of Credit Suisse dropped to a record low last week after its largest investor announced plans to stop investing in the spiraling institution. Regulators fear an uncontrolled failure at Credit Suisse would lead to ripples throughout the financial system. This news comes after the collapse of two banks in the U.S. You might remember him as a Knicks star. Al Harrington spent 16 seasons in the NBA, including several here in New York. But since leaving the court, He's made a pivot and is working towards building an empire in the weed industry.
I wanted to do everything that I could to, one, start to change, the way that people perceive the plant, the stigma around the plant. And then as I've been in the industry for so long now, I have other passions around diversity and inclusion and social equity.
I talked to him about how his grandmother's illness inspired him to get into cannabis, current weed legislation, and his hopes to become the businessman behind a company that fights the stigma around marijuana. My full interview with Al Harrington coming up in a short while. It's time now for Weather on the Ones. We have another cold and dry night in store for the 5 boroughs. Readings will be in the low 30s, but the winds will make it feel colder at times, so keep that in mind if you're going out. Now for your Monday, our temperatures rebound nicely for the afternoon, with many neighborhoods reaching the low 50s. We officially welcome in spring for your Monday evening, your early evening right before 5:30. And for Monday night, expect more dry conditions, but temperatures won't be nearly as cold as tonight. Readings for tomorrow night will be about 10 degrees warmer in the low 40s for the nighttime hours. Looking ahead, our temperatures continue to soar into the upper 50s to near 60 for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we will remain mild for the end of the week, but there is a chance of some wet weather. Your next weather check coming up in 10 minutes. Drag Story Hour, drag performers reading to children and their families at a recent event. A lot of supporters came out, as well as protesters. New York 1's Justine Ray was there.
We are family.
Tensions ran high in the West Village Sunday during Drag Story Hour. Crowds gathered on 13th Street, one side of the street filled with people chanting in favor of the event, having drag performers read stories to children.
For the kids, it's just somebody in a costume, and it's excitement, and it's an entertaining way to learn.
The other side,
Let kids be kids.
people who were vehemently against it.
It's not about hate. It's about love and protecting the innocence of our children.
New York Attorney General Letitia James organized a Drag Story Hour at the Center, a resource and community center that celebrates the city's LGBT community. The event was intended to be a fun afternoon for kids.
Their love for books is so critically important, but also recognizing that we need to accept each other as we are.
Councilmember Eric Botcher responded to the crowds outside.
What you're seeing now is an attempt to silence and intimidate our community, and it's an attempt to intimidate the families coming to this program, this very quality program. That it is a literacy program.
While people are fired up outside, on the inside of the center, it was very different, a very calm scene as families that I spoke to enjoyed Story Hour.
Joe Trigg brought their 2-year-old son, Micah. This was their first drag queen story hour. They were upset by the clamoring outside.
It's definitely a little overwhelming. I was very appreciative of the supporters that were there that drowned out the negativity. And frankly, I think it's very strange that people are into sexualizing drag like this. There's nothing sexual that goes on here.
Yuhua Hamasaki has been a drag performer for 15 years and says the kids at the event are lucky to have this resource.
I would have felt more belonged. I would have felt like I belonged here in this world and fitting in, because I didn't have any of this when I was a kid.
Despite the opposition outside, Trick was glad their son was able to go and be exposed to this.
I think it's very important for children to see possibility and the genders that are represented, and it's important for them to see themselves reflected back.
In the West Village, Justine Ray, New York 1.
Dramatic video of a man jumping in to help police. New York 1's Ron Lee joins us from the Upper West Side with more. Ron.
Hey there, Dean. Well, it can be said that real-life heroes are not the type to boast about their actions. And here in Manhattan, one man in particular is being praised for his quick thinking when it came to catching a guy who police were running after. Police say that he had several guns on him. Now, let's take a look at some surveillance video from Thursday afternoon that shows 69-year-old Edmund Mering of the Upper West Side as he shoulder tackled and caught a man who prosecutors say had just run from a bodega in Chelsea where he had brandished illegal firearms that were fully loaded. I am joined now by that brave Good Samaritan, Edmund, who was on his way to happy hour with his girlfriend to celebrate his birthday when he saw that suspect running towards him. What went through your mind as this guy was coming towards you? Why did you think you needed to help out?
At first, I saw someone running very fast down the block, and it caught my eye, and then when I looked closer, I could see a group of 5 or 6 policemen in the distance also running in my direction. And at that point, I realized that they were in pursuit. It happened very quickly. I was with my partner, and when I saw them getting very close, I asked her to move to the side. She went off the sidewalk onto the street, and as he was coming by, I stepped into the sidewalk, so he had to go right by me. And then I shoulder tackled him. He luckily went down, and I held him for maybe 15 seconds until the police arrived. It happened very quickly.
And you are very, very brave. And you were telling me earlier that you had no idea that he had these loaded firearms, because if you had known, maybe you might not have taken that step. But fortunately, there is a happy ending and things worked out for the best. And we'll be hearing more from Edmund later tonight. That's the latest from the Upper West Side. Ron Lee, New York 1. Dean, back to you.
Wow. All right, Ron, thanks a lot.